Dealing with a family member suffering from a mental illness can be a challenging task. But we need to understand that what they are doing is not in their control. They have become slaves to their mind games. Now, the question is, how do we deal with them in a manner that will put them on the path to a speedy recovery? We'll find this out, inshallah, with Imam Hasan in a few minutes. But before Imam Hasan takes the mic, I will briefly introduce him to everyone present here. He's the Imam at Johns Hopkins University. Additionally, he's the Islamic Chaplain with Baltimore City's Police Department. He's over 25 years of volunteer service as a counselor at the Islamic Community School in West Baltimore. He was an instructor and principal at the Islamic Community School and has received 2 mayor's citations for his contribution to the civic welfare of Baltimore City. Imam Hasan, over to you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. الله ما يضل له وما يضلله فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وبعد. Everyone, I want to thank you all, alhamdulillah, for being part of this conference. I think it's a great conference, and hopefully get a lot of information out of it that can help you, inshallah, and your family. The effects of psychological disorders on family members and caretakers, or mental illness. It's the impact upon the family. There are various, alhamdulillah, if my slides move good, alhamdulillah. Okay, there are various individuals within the family unit that will be impacted by the mental illness on a particular person in the family. We're talking about the parents, we're talking about the spouse, we're talking about the siblings, children, and adult children to parents living with mental illness. And this, of course, this is just a small tip of the iceberg of the people that are impacted by a person in the family that had mental illness. And so the iceberg usually has a small tip at the top, you see above the water, but underneath the water is a mountain of ice. And so this is just a little bit of it. And this list is definitely not exhausted in terms of who is impacted by a person in the family that has a mental illness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in one ayah in the Quran, in other words, it says here, for indeed, with hardship will be ease. Indeed, with hardship will be ease. For every difficulty there will be relief, as some people translate this particular ayah as being. So I just want to bring some ease to those who are caretakers and family members who deal with a person with have mental illness in the family, and that Allah Ta'ala is aware of what's going on, and Allah Ta'ala will bring ease to you, and rely on Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala to bring ease to you and bring ease to your family into your particular situation. Okay, another ayah Allah Ta'ala says, I place a burden on any being with any human being with the responsibility heavier than it can bear. And so I pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah make it easy for you all who are going through this, and that you be able to bear what you're going through by help Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and know that Allah is fully aware of what you're going through. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can see a black ant on a black rock on a black night, so He certainly know what you're going through, and will be by your side to help you through that, as long as we rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, I want us all to be on the same page in terms of, okay, hang with me on the slides, and they're not moving as quickly as I'd like them to move.
Yes, Sheikh, you could just let me know when to change the slides. I'll change the slides for you, inshallah.
Please do that, okay. I want to make sure we're all on the same page in terms of what mental illness is. And mental illness, it includes a range of specific conditions that cause serious disturbance in thoughts, feelings, and perceptions severe enough to affect a person's day-to-day life. There are many different types of mental illnesses. Each has its own specific patterns of symptoms. Some common mental illnesses are schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and also anxiety disorder. And of course, with that comes different symptoms. And some of them, some symptoms of mental illness often occurs in cycles. Episode can last from weeks to months, with time, until times that all are evident. With children, these changes may even be more frequent. People will also differ in how severe the symptoms are, especially if left untreated, will affect your loved one, quality of life. It will also affect those around them. We're going to read a story in a moment about Suzanne and the impact of how it impacted her child having mental illness, and the ups and the downs and the relapse, and also what she did about it in order to deal more positive with it. Go to the next one, sister. Now, in terms of family members, so we all be on the same page. We talk about a family member living with mental illness, which refers to someone you love and support. It could be a family member, it could be a traditional family, since it could be a spouse, it could be a mother, a sister, a brother, grandfather, grandmother, aunt, uncle, cousin, or a friend. And sometimes in our family, we may call someone who is not blood relative, we sometimes call them auntie or uncle or something like that. And so they may also be considered that person who is as a family member and suffering with mental illness that you may be caring for. And next slide, please. So we all on the same page regarding that we're talking about a family member being with mental illness. Mental illness, brothers and sisters, roller coaster ride. You're up and you're down in terms of your emotion. When you first learn your family member is living with mental illness, you or other family members may have experienced a range of emotions. And some of you may be able to relate to what I'm talking about, what you've been going through when you first found out that your family member has a mental illness. Common emotions are shock, you have fear, your sadness, you feel guilt, you feel anxiety, you feel confused. Sometimes you feel compassion, you have some understanding, or even sometimes angry. Families are relieved to finally learn a reason for the changes that they see in their family members. Others hope the diagnosis is wrong. At the moment I read Suzanne's story about that kind of hope. Some families may feel anger, resentment, especially if they feel powerless in changing their family member's situation. And you're talking about power. Say, for example, you're a head of a corporation, or you always been a person in charge and in control, but then all of a sudden this person has this mental illness, and you have no control whatsoever over this individual, or be able to help this individual the way you really want to. And so you feel powerless, and you feel weak, and you feel hurt. And you go through a lot of different emotions that you're going through because of what your family member is going through. Next slide, please. Because of what your family member is going through, and you can't do anything about it. But to remember that it's okay to feel the way you do. Feelings and attitudes will also likely change over time. Family members may feel that you are riding an emotional roller coaster, as I mentioned before. Understanding and acknowledging your feelings, as uncomfortable as it may be, is important. Where your feelings are coming from and how best you can deal with them. Members have found joining a support group or talk with other families who are also dealing with mental illness helpful. This support group is very, very important. And you see when I read Suzanne's story in a moment, just how important it is, because there are other family members that are going through the same thing that you're going through. Other families going through the same thing that you're going through. And so sometimes talking to people or in your peer, meaning other families going through what you're going through, that helps a lot in helping you to deal with what you're going through and your emotional change that you're going through with your family member. Next slide, please. Get to the story, the Suzanne's story. When Suzanne learned her son Charles had depression, she was in denial. He had just needed time, love, and care to be, quote, back to normal. When the reality of Charles' illness had sunk in, Suzanne was angry, embarrassed, and ashamed. She talked about her feelings to very few people, opting to keep it pretty much a secret. When Charles began to get better, she started to think that the experience of the illness was behind her and her son. Then Charles suffered a relapse. Suzanne was devastated. She realized, though, that she wanted and needed to better understand the illness in order to support Charles. Through learning about mental illness and joining a support group, she and Charles began to feel more optimistic that his illness could be effectively managed. And these are very key things. First, to learn about the illness yourself. A support group to help you to manage what you're going through. To share with them what you're going through. Because some people may already been through what you're going through, or what your family member is going through. You can go to the next slide. And so sharing with them, they can help you make it through, because they may have been already where you are. I mentioned just a few things about Ruqya, because I think that Dr. Anwar Suhaib tomorrow will be talking about the use of Ruqya in mental and spiritual health and intervention. So inshallah, I won't go into a lot of details regarding that. But I am the chaplain at Johns Hopkins University, Johns Hopkins Hospital here in Baltimore, Maryland. And so I use this ayat. I use some ayats from Quran and also some the hadith that I'm going to mention in a few minutes to help the patients that I visit. And we had to always keep in touch with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever we're going through. One day the Prophet Salam, a young man was riding behind him, the Prophet Salam, and he said, young man, mindful of Allah, he will be mindful of you. And if you are mindful of Allah, you will find him before you. When you ask anything for anything, ask it from Allah. And if you seek help from Allah. So we had to keep in mind, respected brothers and sisters, that we had to keep always Allah in the forefront when we have a need and we have a want. I remember giving a talk a few weeks ago, and people were going through something, and I gave a talk. And put their trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and trust in Allah and watch things change, inshallah. Talked to me after the talk, and she said, she was crying, and she said, and I said to her, I said, did you ask of Allah? And she said, no, I have not. All these years I never asked really of Allah, and so I was to ask of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this again, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about Ruqya, but it was mentioned. This is one of the hadith that I always keep in mind, or the dua that I make when I go visit my patients and at the hospital. With Thabit and I went to Anas ibn Malik, and Thabit said, "O Abu Hamza," and on that Anas said, "Shall I treat you with the ruqya of Allah's apostle?" And Thabit said, "Yes." Anas recited, "O Allah, the Lord of the people, the remover of trouble, please heal this patient, for you are the healer. None brings about healing but you, a healing that will leave behind no ailment or no problem." So this is a great dua to make. Next slide, please. A great dua to make when you're going to visit a patient or for your individual, for your family member. To remind us that the Quran itself is a guide and a healer to those who believe. So we have to ask of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We want help, ask for help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and understand our answers are in Quran, and making dua and asking what we need and what we want, we desire from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Next slide, please. Now this is unusual. Usually we're grieving to a person dying, but grieving also happens when you talk about a mental illness. There's some losses there, because when a person dies, you lose them. And so also the same thing when you talk about mental illness. But mental illness, especially when chronic, it is often associated with a number of losses for everyone affected by the illness. These losses may include a loss of the person as they were before the illness began, personal goals and aspirations, loss of original family life, or ordinary family life, I'm sorry. Also, is in disruption in the relationships. And I'm going to go back, please, to the next. And also we're talking about loss of normal childhood, a stable home, and a loss of that mate that you had. You go to the next slide. And this particular one is very, go ahead to the next slide, please. This grieving, inshallah, you married one person. But then when the mental illness starts affecting the person, then you're married to someone else. And a lot of your goals and aspirations, you go to the next slide, a lot of your goals and aspirations, they change. Then instead of going down one road, you're now going down a new road, and you're going down it together. Now, there's certain impacts that this whole thing we talk about mental illness has upon the families. And this again is not limited to what I'm getting ready to mention now. And some of the impacts of mental illness has on the family are significant impact upon the family. It began with that they are faced with difficult decisions about the treatment, about hospitalization, and about housing, etc. And their families face the anxiety of an uncertain future and the stress of what can be a severe or limiting disability. The heavy demands of care may lead to burnout. Of medication, time off work, and extra support can create a severe financial burden on families. Both the care requirements and the stigma attached to mental illness often lead to isolation of family members from the community and a social support network. These are, you go to the next slide. These are very important, brothers and sisters, to understand that the burden that sometimes mental illness has and negative impact it has upon the family and the finances and the treatment. But sometimes you get into argument back and forth. What kind of treatment? What hospital? Should we not keep the person in the home? Let's take the person out of the home and put them inside some facility. And so this can be a strain upon the family and cause some medication and being off work when the person has an episode. So all this can have a negative impact upon the family and bring a strain upon the family. Next slide, please. Now, there always is a stigma attached to mental illness in the family. And some of you probably going to mention some of this later on at the end when I ask you for any questions, because you're probably going through these things and maybe a lot of other stigmas attached to a mental illness in the family, a family member having a mental illness. And it says here, even when all members of the family have the knowledge to deal with mental illness, the family is often reluctant to discuss their family member with others because they do not know how people will react. Myths and misconceptions surround mental illness. For many, even their closest friends may not understand. For example, a young man with schizophrenia pointed out that when a brother had cancer, all his friends were supportive and understanding. But when she told a few close friends that her brother had paranoid schizophrenia, they said little and implied that something must be very wrong in her family that causes illness. They become reluctant to invite anyone to the home because the ill person can be unpredictable and it's the disruption and the heightened stimulation of a number of people in the house. Furthermore, family members may be anxious about leaving an ill person at home alone. About what can happen. The result is that they go out separately or not at all. So this can have a very negative impact upon the family and also the stigma upon the family. People think for some reason they're going to catch or look at you. If your family member is have a mental illness, then you must have one. You must have one too. And so you have these myths and misconceptions and stigma that's attached to a person that has mental illness or a family member that has a illness. Next slide, please. Now let's start looking at the impact on individuals that care for someone who has mental illness. And so one of it is, let's go look at the parents first. Research shows that families are not to blame for their child's mental illness. It is sometimes difficult to overcome this feeling that mental illnesses can help reduce and eliminate the guilt that some parents feel. Parents may also be caring for other children and worried about how they are coping. The increased attention that mental illness often requires many direct times away from other children. So I'm saying this right here, particular one is very important because sometimes parents are so concentrated on the child with the mental illness that sometimes they may neglect or isolate the other children that they have in the family, because the one with the mental illness needs more attention than the other ones. Or the mother or father feels that, what did I do? Did I drink too much? Did I smoke too much? Did I take drugs? All these kind of things are going through people's mind. Did I cause this mental illness that happened upon my child? And what did I do? And so they have this kind of guilt upon them, and they may not. You go to the next slide, and they may not tell the children about this, because a lot of times parents protect the children. They don't want to tell the children what they're going through, but they're going through something, and it's a struggle from what they're going through, dealing with trying to balance between taking care of the household, taking care of the child, and also going to work, and all the balance that the parents have to go through. And so I want you all to understand that parents are going through something too, and this is one of the things they're going through when they're caring for a child with a mental illness. Affecting the other people and the other people in the family, the child, the spouses. It's just that they're really focused on this child because the child needs more attention. Let's go to spouses, for example. Spouses, they go through not a special challenge in terms of mental illness, but you watch, for example, your spouse go from the one that you married to a totally different person. You can even watch your spouse their mind kind of melts away just a little at a time, chips away a little at a time, from being this energetic, loving spouse to just changing because the mental illness has captured their mind and their behavior. Living with a spouse illness can place strain on an existing relationship. The spouse of an ill person may experience guilt, shame, and may the couple's social life and physical intimacy may change. They feel grief for the loss of the life that they had imagined. For a moment that you marry your wife or your husband, and you all raise your children, and then your plan is at the end of life, or after you retire, that you're going to travel the world and see things and do things together. But then when the mental illness kicks in, you can't do those things anymore. You can't go down that road anymore, that path. You have to choose a new path, but you choose it together. Go to the next slide, please. Go down a new path together. You still show your love, you still show your caring, you still show that you have an appreciation for your spouse. And this particular quote that I want you all to think about is that it's something I need you all to I guess think about when you're dealing with your spouse that has mental illness. You have to view your spouse's illness as something you both have to fight as a team. Focus on what is best for the both of you. And so I want you all to please keep this in mind, that has a spouse that's going through a mental illness, that you are still a team, and that together you can make this work. You can make this work. Lost a parent with the island. Next slide, please. Lost a parent with the island. You don't want to just take your spouse and just put them away someplace. This is your spouse, for better or worse. She or he is your spouse, so you want to take care of them and do what is best for them, because you want them to do the same thing if you were in that same situation. Siblings is a very unique. We talk about siblings and mental illness. The onset of sibling mental illness can cause other sibling confusion, stress, sadness, or fear for their brothers or sisters' well-being. Siblings may experience stigma, family life that revolves around their sibling living with mental illness, personal shame, or survivor's guilt, and feeling bad because they are healthy and doing well. So fear that they too or their children will develop mental illness. That they will one day have to take on the role of primary supporter. These are very important because a lot of siblings feel this way. That, oh no, I may get it, or maybe it skip me and go to my children that have it. They may get the mental illness. And what's going through their mind, because you know how to get impact. You're talking about the impact of psychological disorder or mental illness has on the different individuals in the family. They say, okay, right now, my parents are caring for the child or my sibling that has a mental illness. But suppose my parents die, then that means it may fall on me to have to be the primary caretaker for my brother or for my sister. What am I going to do? Am I going to care for them? This new person, my husband accepted this person that has a mental illness into our family and around our children, around their nieces and their nephew, or do I put my brother, my sister away? Deal with them because the particular hospital or center or something is going to deal with my sibling. And so these are some of the fears that go through the minds of the sibling of a person who has the sibling who has a brother or sister who have mental illness. Next slide, please. Also something for you all to think about, for us to think about. We talk about mental illness can lead to a variety of emotional effects for brothers and sisters of siblings living with mental illness. For example, they may feel confusion. They may be confused about the siblings' change in their behavior, because they knew at one time that the sibling was energetic, but now all of a sudden they just started changing to become more violent or do things that are strange to them. Embarrassment about being with their sibling or their brother or their sister, particularly in public, and so they don't want to be around them because they embarrass or they act out or they make sounds or they start talking to themselves, something like that. They're jealous that the parents have attention. The parents give them too much attention to that particular sibling with the mental illness, and not giving them any attention, not showing any love towards them. Sometimes we feel resentment, not being like other families. Other families are normal. Our next door neighbor, they're normal. Across the street, they're normal. But our family is abnormal because we have this child or this sibling that has this mental illness. As mentioned before, always a fear that it's in the DNA, that is part of our family makeup, and that they too may develop mental illness. Next slide, please. And so that's the worry for the siblings. And so these are all things that we need to keep in mind in terms of what the siblings are going through within the family unit. Now, how do we support them? Support the siblings that if siblings are supported, they are more likely to succeed in reaching their own goals and to contribute to the quality of life of their brothers or sisters. Siblings may need encouragement to ask questions, to share their feelings. They may need reassurance about their own mental health. This is very important that to get the proof that you can show that, no, it's this individual, he or she has it, and that doesn't mean you're going to get it too. It is important that siblings participate in activities and relationships outside of the family and develop their own future plans. And so this last part is very important, that yes, this is going on with our family right now, but then again, you still can make your plans to be a doctor, to be a lawyer, or wherever you want to be, and know that you're going to be okay, and give them support that even they're going to be okay, and your life won't revolve around just the sibling with the mental illness. You have to get married, you have to have your own children and have your own household. So they need to understand that they can go out and do those things, and also continue to make dua for the sibling that has the mental illness. Next slide, please. Young children. I'm going to stay with this for a little while with young children because they are really deeply impacted. Sometimes they don't know how to respond to what's going on with their sibling that has or their parent that has a mental illness. Young children experience a variety of emotions and reactions to a parent or sibling's illness. They may be scared and confused about the changes they see in their family member. Children often feel isolated and also alone. And you may not realize that I want to add here to it is that sometimes the sibling, go to the next slide, sibling or the young children may act out. They may go to school and act out because they're not getting attention they want at home. So they may go to school and act out at school because they need attention. They need someone to show them love or give them some attention. Because at home, I'm not getting attention. In order to get attention, they may be good, or then again, they may not get the attention in school. So if they're bad, they get some attention that they need. So please be aware that children have a different way of showing their need for attention, for affection, and show that people care about them and pay attention to them. Even if it's negative attention, they seek that through their behavior, because they're not getting at home, because all the attention at home is focused on the child or the mother or the individual that's going through the mental illness. Now, some suggestions. Meaning children with age-appropriate information about their family members' illness help to relieve their fears. Children should be encouraged to talk about their feelings. It is important to let children know their feelings are normal. Abnormal feelings people go through. You're feeling what I'm feeling when you talk to a child. You may also want to use these talks as an opportunity to discuss ways the children can cope with their feelings. Next one, please. And when we talk about age appropriate, also you go to websites. You can Google if you like about different websites that talk about how to help children get through understanding mental illness. They may even have some cartoons, but sometimes when children look at cartoons, or I guess some places have Sesame Street talk about mental illness or a child being different in the family. I think they talk about sometimes a child having Down syndrome, so they may address that, or a child having mental illness, so they may address it in cartoons or Sesame Street or YouTube, where they may address it. So get some age-appropriate information that the child can understand and be able to grasp. Okay, now I understand what they're going through, and they may be more empathetic towards their sibling, what they're going through. Understand, okay, I'm not getting all the attention. My parents still love me, but I know that this person needs a little more love than maybe I need for right now. Also, as far as the children are concerned, they are better able to deal with the issue when they have the support of a caring person who listens. Because children sometimes they keep it in, but a lot of times they're blurred out in all kinds of ways. And so listen to them. Let them talk it out, and maybe even share your own feelings of what they're going through. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this is normal. Okay, you're not abnormal in your feelings towards what you're going through. Next slide, please. Time for the family. This is so essential. We talk about particularly for the children. Family life is about more than just the illness. You want to make sure your children continue to feel safe and secure, with as little disruption in their everyday routine as possible. Try to make time for family outings, or just doing things with your children. Things are very important, brothers and sisters, that you do this with your children that are dealing with. And you have this person who in household have mental illness, and that you help your children to make it through. You're helping children because they're going through something, and they're going through a lot. They may express it or may not express it, but you find time to do something outside of the illness. Have dinner together, go to the park together, do something together as a family, and make the family as normal as possible. Because now the person with the mental illness, you have a new normal in your family. On one level, but now the mental illness is part of the family now. Now you have a new normal. But don't let it take away from the values of the family. Take away from family time and other things you need to do as a family. Now, you also want to talk about your feelings and encourage your children to share theirs. This is so essential. Do not try to pretend like everything is just fine when it is not. Children can easily sense when things are not right. Let them know how you feel, but in a way that ensures that they do not feel helpless or abandoned. Encourage them to speak about their fears, guilt, and confusion. If your children are old enough, talk to them about the illness and let them know about the long-term plans for ongoing support. Involve them in supporting their family member if they seem to be able to handle the responsibility. If they are worried that they or their children may develop a mental illness, talk to them about their chances. There are websites and other resources materials available that discuss statistics in mental illness. So all these things, these advice I'm giving to you, brothers and sisters, these are very essential when you talk about dealing with children. Not just the ideas I'm giving to you and presenting to you right now, but other ideas that you may have that you may want to share now, or the end when I finish, share with others what they can do in terms of dealing with the feelings of the children and also your own feelings, and let them be able to express it. Because you know for yourself, do not pretend that everything is fine when everyone knows that that is not fine. But this individual, your parent, your child, your loved one, they're going through something right now. They're going through the mental illness, and so you know it's not fine. And don't pretend that it is. And so give them age-appropriate talks and give them age-appropriate material. And if they can handle the person with mental illness, then allow them to be part of that process. Next slide, please. Now, consider counseling or professional help. You're talking about counselors or professional help may be available through your school, your university, your employer, your family resource centers, and other service providers, or your family members' health plan. There might be other areas that can help you with your children and with other family members that have a challenge in terms of dealing with the person with the mental illness, particularly the children, because they sometimes get lost. Everyone's focused on their one child, or focused on their parents, or focused on something else, and the children kind of get lost, and that's why they feel lost and isolated. And so, if you have available to you some organization that can help you inshallah, to help you through this, organization. And as I mentioned earlier, next slide, please. I mentioned earlier, please be part of a group, of a support group. And also get your children involved in a support group as they're getting ready to read right now. You help them to see that they are not alone, the children. Encourage them to meet others in a similar situation, resource centers and family members, health professionals. May offer suggestions such as peer groups, or help your child to start a peer group. If none exists, there may be no other families that have children that are having family members who have mental illness, and they have children in the family. Maybe you all can get together, age appropriate, they can talk amongst themselves about what they're going through, or get a counselor, a social worker, or a counselor, a professional in this area of mental illness, or helping children work through mental illness. Challenges that a caretaker goes through dealing with a person with mental illness, or a person with mental illness in the home. You get your child, in these groups, because sometimes a peer could say something to a child that you can't say. You can't get the point across that a peer can get a point across. You're not seeing it maybe not see it on their level, and a child at 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or 12 or something like that, they can understand what that child is going through on that child's level and help them make it through. Because I already been through that, and this is what I did when I saw it. I watched this, I did this, or I played a game or something like that, so that other children can help other children get through. So these peer groups can be very helpful. Next slide, please. Very helpful to a child making it through dealing with someone in a family that has mental illness. This particular one, I talk about providing a safety net. I'm talking about if you're not around, the child can make contact with other individuals, trusted individuals that can help them work through things and talk to them. Or emergency comes up and you're not available to quickly respond, like a neighbor can quickly respond because you're at work to a need of a child that might be watching a child who has a mental illness, or they may want to talk to someone. So they may want to talk to someone about what they're going through. And so you may provide a list of names and telephone numbers of caring adults for children and youth to call if they need help. And get caught with the fears with give them correct information, and give them clear instruction on what to do in case of an emergency. Ensure that they understand ahead of time that emergency situation can arise, and that they know what to do. Explain to them what kinds of emergency could arise, and remind them that their safety and welfare comes first. Getting some of the neighbors involved, and also kind of taking the stigma of mental illness in the family off of the family, because more neighbors are involved, more neighbors understand what you're going through, and they want you and support the family. And if you're not available to help the child, then they'll be close enough to be able to help the child that's going through something, maybe confused, or maybe need some help because the person with the mental illness are starting to act out, and so they may need some assistance. Next slide, please. And they can be able to go over the house very quickly and assist the child with being safe, and help them to help them be able to help the person who is going through an episode with their mental illness, because of their mental illness. Now, you're talking about adult children of a parent living with mental illness. This has various different degrees. Some is shame, and some is person out the adult. And let me read, and then you'll understand what I'm growing up with a family. A family member living with mental illness can have an impact that lasts into a person's adulthood. It could affect how the person feels about themselves, their personal identity, and self-esteem. It can also lead to strength. These strengths could be a sense of self-reliance, an ability to tolerate, to be tolerant and non-judgmental, and also compassionate and caring. And also the ability, also they could be creative and imaginative and artistic, and all the other things out there that I mentioned here to you, and that you can read for yourself, and it makes them unique and stronger individual by them caring for an adult. Let me go into the next slide. Very important, talking about developing a person with an adult with mental illness, and that is in how it strengthens them. And adult children reported that they have become better and stronger people. Their experience of growing up with a parent and living with mental illness led them to develop greater empathy, compassion, more tolerance, and understanding, healthier attitudes and priorities, and a greater appreciation for life. Having a parent with mental illness, it can make even a stronger and better adult. Next slide, please. Some of you that are out there listening to me, maybe you already experienced this. Notice that you are a better and stronger adult because you, and a more coping person, because you dealt with a parent with mental illness. These are just some resources, as I summarize, some resources that you can use. A lot of what I mentioned to you came from Healthy Minds, which is a great resource. I think a lot of our slides will be available to you, but I want to lead this up for a little while, because this particular website, they have a lot of great information about a mental illness, how to deal with mental illness in families, and all the things that I mentioned so far. It's an innovative healthcare cooperative that provides a variety of peer-based services to people living with mental illness and their family members. So please write this one down, because you can all refer to them whenever you need some help or you need some references. You can probably even write to them and ask them for organizations in your neighborhood or where you live that can be able to help you, help your family member cope. Next slide, please. Slide, I believe it talks about schizophrenia, and connecting you to an organization that deals with schizophrenia. I'm sorry. It aims to improve the quality of life of those who are affected by schizophrenia and psychosis, and through education, support programs, and also public policy and resource. So And so this is a great organization that can be able to help you with information that you may need to help you with schizophrenia and psychosis and other type of diseases, mind-altering diseases. Go to the next slide, please. Now, the best help is the help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because I only have a couple more minutes. It's a lot. If help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you make a dua. When you're making dua, alhamdulillah, these are some of the best time you make a dua and ask Allah Ta'ala before you break your fast. It's a great time when you're in the last sujood, when you're making salah. This is a good time to ask Allah for what you need, one desire. And the basic methodology is that you praise Allah. You praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, prayers upon the Prophet sallallahu, and then you ask Allah for what you want, need, and desire. Another time for making dua, and depends on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that when it's raining, traveling, or special time on Friday prayer. And you can always read Hadith, Bukhari, or Muslim, and read about the special times on Friday when you can make the dua and Allah is stronger than Allah to answer your prayer. Some say between the time when the Imam, the khutbah, make the first khutbah that he sits down, between that time and his rest period is a good time to make dua before he stands up to get the second part of the khutbah. And then at other times, some say after Asr, Allah knows best about those times. Also, another good time is for tahajjud. You go to the next slide. It's for tahajjud. When Allah Ta'ala comes down to the lower heavens and he asks those around him, who's up, who's asking of me, and I will give to them. When it's asleep around 2 or 3 in the morning, then you get up, make 2 rakat, and then after you make 2 rakat and you salam al taslim to the right and to the left, and then you raise your hand up and praise Allah, and then also give prayers upon the Prophet salam, and then ask Allah Ta'ala for what you want and what you need and what you desire. Because Allah Rasul Salami said, supplication is the essence of worship. He mentioned that the methodology that if one of you supplicates, do not say, "Oh Allah, forgive me," if you will. You should ask with will and conviction. For there is nothing so great to Allah that He cannot grant. And also, don't rush that Allah is going to do it instantly. He said, you are responding to as long as you do not become hasty and say, "I supplicated and it is not being, or was not responded to." And so, don't rush Allah. No one can rush Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will do it in Allah's time, not in your time. Next slide, please. And the last one, inshallah, I want to remind us too, is by Abu Hurairah. He said, Allah's Apostle, he said, when my servant draws close to me by the span of a palm, I draw close to him by the space of a cubit. And when he draws close to me by the space of a cubit, I draw close to him by the space covered by 2 handspans. And when he draws close to me by the space covered by 2 handspans, I go in hurry towards him. Slide, please. I want to thank everyone, alhamdulillah, for listening to me. And of course, alhamdulillah, I'm open any questions. Jazakallah
khair, Imam Hassan. Alhamdulillah, a lot of information and tips. Hopefully, we'll be able to implement them to help our near and dear ones to ease their problems, inshallah. We'll now take a few questions, so please type your questions in the chat box. Please make sure that the question is brief and related to the topic so we can maximize the benefit from the question and answer session as well. Sheikh, the first question that we received is from Sister Barbara. She's asked, is it appropriate to use ruqya on children?
Well, ruqya could be used. It was no limit to it. You can use it because one time the Prophet ﷺ, he was riding and then he saw a child that was, a woman was with a child, and the child had was going through something, and then he made dua for that particular child, and the child was healed. And so it doesn't say that use ruqya just for adults. You could use on anyone that is stricken by something, some kind of ailment. And so it's never limited. Even the hadith I read, it didn't say it was for just in a particular individual. It's just for anyone that needs help. And I want to remind the Sister Barbara, a great question, and that please tune in tomorrow evening when Dr. Anwar Sahib will be talking about ruqya. And it's a great question also to put to him, because he's going to talk about the use of ruqya in mental and spiritual health intervention. That is not a problem. Please use it on anyone that needs it, inshallah. And not just the ruqya, also make the dua that I mentioned before, and to tahajjud in different times to make the prayers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ask Allah ta'ala for the help that you need. Anything that you want, anything that you need, ask Allah ta'ala, and inshallah, and watch things change in your life, inshallah.
Sheikh, in the next question, the sister mentions that her mother has anxiety and sometimes she gets panic attacks as well. Her relation with her father is not really great. When she's too anxious, she doesn't want her talking to or going to her dad's room. And if she becomes too anxious or sometimes hateful towards her and her father, so this takes an emotional toll on her emotional health. So she wants advice on how she can cope and stay stable with when parents use her because of their mental health.
I didn't catch the last part you said. You kind of broke off. What about the mental health?
She wants some advice with regards to how she can cope and stay stable when parents use her as pawns because of their mental health.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, I understand that part. When you talk about this particular thing, sister, the only thing and the best is to make the dua, because they may not even understand what they're doing. Even normal parents that don't have the mental health issues, sometimes they may use a child between them, and a child is like back and forth between the parents, and that's normal. Ones that maybe one or two might experience a mental illness, and so a situation like that, where it put a lot of stress on you, a lot of strain on you, and so inshallah, your best remedy for that, inshallah, is to make dua, because they may not even understand what they're doing, and if you talk to them both about it, they may not be able to comprehend or understand about and not realize what they're doing because of their mental health state. Your best remedy for that, inshallah, because I assume that you love them both, inshallah. And so your best remedy for that is to make the dua that I mentioned. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ask Allah ta'ala to help you through this thing. Because Allah can see a black ant on a black rock on a black night. So He's well aware of what you're going through. Allah out the equation, because He can help you make it through what you're going through and bring a sakina or the counter of tranquility upon you and upon your family situation. Anything you can say to either one of them because of their inability to comprehend what you're saying. So you have to take it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah wants us to ask of Him and seek help from Him, because if we don't do that, sister, Allah may make a people get rid of us and make a people who will ask of Him and seek help from Him. So inshallah, you make the wudu and do the things that I mentioned earlier and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then inshallah wait for the answer from Allah. Rasul Sallam, he asked of Allah. And so we have to do the same thing, ask of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what we need and what we want and what we desire. This is the best thing. And don't let shaitan convince you otherwise and say, don't listen to what this man is saying. No. Let your dua blast and make many duas as you love for what you need and what you want and what you desire, inshallah. And Allahu Alam.
The next question we have, is it good for you to have your family member with schizophrenia live with you in your home?
It depends. Now, the thing is, are you going to be able to deal with it if they don't live in your home? Are you going to feel some kind of guilt if you put them inside of some kind of a home for people with mental illnesses? If you're going to put your mother in a place with other people that have schizophrenia, for example, and the thing is, and when you want that done to you, and you got that disability or that disease or I'm sorry, that illness, then when you want your children to do the same thing, now if you can't handle it, and then you may be bringing counselor and advisors in to help you to make a decision, a family to help you make a decision. But the thing is, would you want that same thing done to you, or would your parent do that to you? If you have what they're going through, would your, inshallah, Allahu Alam, your parents do the same thing to you that you're going to think about doing to your parent? And so really, you need to have a family meeting and discuss what would be best in your situation regarding that person that has the mental impairment, or whoever it is that has the schizophrenia. And you have to decide from yourself, from the family perspective, what would be best for the family, and also how you're going to feel once you make the decision is made. Inshallah, bad about it, you were wrong and doing what you did, because that's something you have to live with. But you feel good about it, right about it, of course, that is also something you're going to live with. So you ask Allah, and that's what you have, istikhara. You make decisions to make, then you take it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If this affair is good for me, then put it into my heart that it's good for me. But is it bad for me? Put it in my heart that is bad for me. So find out what istikhara is, how to do it, and then make the istikhara, and then make the decision based on your answer on making the istikhara. To Islam, the best way to handle every situation, and sometimes because your personal way may not be the best way, and just put it in the hands of Allah, as the Prophet ﷺ put his life in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then it just let go and let Allah be in control of the situation.
Jazakallah khair, Imam. The next question we have is from a sister who asks how to solve a problem if one's spouse doubts them because of a bad experience of being cheated in the past.
Is that this topic? It sounds like a counseling one-on-one topic with a cheating spouse. That question I don't fully understand. I do deal with those kinds of situations, what he's talking about. It's part of from the topic. And if you want to, sister, she can always email me and I can help her with that. But as far as this topic, it sounds like it's not this topic.
Okay, inshallah, let's check. We'll move on to our next question. What can we do if a child is not ready to share his feelings or incident that has occurred which led to his state of illness?
Okay, but at that point you bring in a professional. Know how to do it, how to get it out of the child, but a professional knows how to do it. A social worker, a counselor, or a psychiatrist, they know how to draw these things out of a child. They may have the environment to draw, like a toys around them or something like that. And while the child playing with the toy, the child may start talking about their feelings or acting out with the toy about how they're feeling. And so you may not be able to do it because you may have the skill set of the child. So get some professionals, some counselors, and professionals involved, be able to help you, inshallah, to draw out from that child what they're feeling, what they're going through, so you could go to the next step, meaning medicine or whatever the next step would be. Inshallah, inshallah, the professionals, they know how to do it, and inshallah, because our skill sets are limited. Involved, inshallah, and you inshallah, and also make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that they'll be able to draw out from your child what they're going through, to help, as I say, get information about what's going to. I told you all earlier, get information about the illness, and then inshallah be able to deal with the illness and get whatever group counseling or peer counseling that the child will need, and then inshallah to draw out what you think is going on with the child and the needs of the child. Help the child, and also the person, the counselor, the professional will be able to help you to say, okay, this is the next step for your child. It has some more normalcy to the child and to your family.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. The next question we have is, we've had this question before in the previous session as well, but maybe you could help this person better. What does one do where the spouse is in denial about the mental issue or refuses to seek any help?
Okay, I heard that question. I listened to the early one. I did hear that question before, and the brother alhamdulillah, he gave a good answer regarding that. But I want to add to what he said, and the sister's still there, or the person's still there, is that making the dua, as people keep leaving out. A lot of times people leave out the dua from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the spiritual piece to it. leave it on an earthly human level and forget about I got to put it this way in the spiritual way, and ask Allah Ta'ala for the help that they need. Because maybe sometimes human beings can't get across to the husband. She obviously cannot get across to her husband. And so you take it out of your hands and put it in the hands of Allah. This is what she needs to do in her situation. She can't keep fighting with him. He may not go, as the brother had mentioned to her before, maybe a counselor involved, or at least go, I think the brother said earlier, take her at least one time. He asked him to go at least one time. What can it help? What can hurt? By him going one time to see the counselor, it can't hurt. What's going to hurt? And he's right in terms of that. But also add on, sister, and put it in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I remember as Imam, when I was going through something with some of the members of our community, I made dua, God for the hajj, made dua, and I put it in the hands of Allah, and I let it go. Ya Allah, it's in your hands. I'm letting it go. What you want to do with Allah, I'm letting it go. And she has to do the same thing. Put it in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then back away, and then inshallah watch things change. Because she has no control over him, and human beings may not have a control over him, but Allah does have control over him. He who has control over her husband. And Allah knows best.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. So we'll take this one last question, inshallah. What advice would you give to a person who has more than 2 family members suffering from mental illnesses?
Okay, and that situation, I guess it's because I don't know how many other family members involved with this other family member. I only have like 2 family members. You're the only one. And you have 5 other people. So hopefully you're not the only one. That'd be a very big burden on you. Which means you have to get a lot of outside help to help, because you not be able to do it. Let's say you have a child and a spouse. That's a lot on a woman, for example, or on a husband or a wife. And so she need to get more outside help. If you have other family members involved, then have a family meeting and discuss how do we deal with this situation. But she needs more outside help, or he needs more outside help to help them to deal with these 2 people. It's overwhelming just to have one person with a mental illness, but to have 2 people, then inshallah you need to have more people from the outside of helping you and bring more people in. And don't close your family off to outside help, because you may not be able to do it by yourself, because it's a challenge and it's too much, and you end up being burnt out. Depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also by the will of Allah, invite other people in to help you with your situation, and then because you need a relief off of you that off your shoulders, inshallah, and then other people outside of the family unit can help you, give you some relief, inshallah. And don't be ashamed to do that, because you do need help, because it may be overwhelming and you may be burning yourself out. Don't really realize how much you're burning yourself out by trying to deal with these 2 situations, and you may not have the skill set to deal with these 2 people with mental illnesses.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. That's all the time we have for Imam Hasan for now. We thank you, Imam, on behalf of the IUU as well as the audience for this amazing presentation. May Allah reward you abundantly. Our next session is titled Understanding and Managing Hyperactive Child, and will commence after a break of 15 minutes, inshallah.